are you doing?
Burying you.
I'm alive, man. I'm alive.
You're waking the neighbors.
No.
Shut up.
No.
What's up, guys? Boy, Benny. So, did you ever watch the Oppenheimer movie? A lot of people did, won a bunch of Academy Awards. I thought it was a really good movie, actually. It's about the splitting of the atom, right? How you split one little atom, and the cornerstone molecule of the universe, and that teeny little invisible atom splits, and in the right conditions, it creates a nuclear explosion. It creates a chain reaction that creates the biggest, most dangerous bomb ever. It blows up the world, right? And that kind of reminds me of the Daily Wire's firing of Candace. Well, one action that in isolation seems quite small, but ends up having this compounding cascade chain reaction that is blowing up the world, quite frankly. There are people getting involved in this Candace Owens thing that are crazy, man. Comedian Andrew Schultz, for instance, and his crew are now hopping on board. Patrick Bet-David and his crew, and Ben Shapiro's out with a new attack on Tucker Carlson now, which is very interesting. And so Ben Shapiro, I guess, dragging Tucker into the mix when I'm not sure Tucker's really commented on this, yet here we are. So let's take a step back and actually understand what's happening here. Russell Brand, I know, we're running out of people to include, quite frankly. We just got to shove Alex Jones in there and we're good, right? We got the full buffet of conservative commentators. Russell Brand, on his podcast, had Tucker Carlson on, and Tucker Carlson said this about Ben Shapiro and the Israel-Hamas war.
A few things. First, we have a right to be mad, at least, and let me just again speak for Americans, middle-aged Americans, which is what I am. You know, I've got 4 draft-age children. So if you're playing recklessly, fast and loose with their lives, then I have a right to despise you, and I do. So if you're Nikki Haley, who's running for president, or Ben Shapiro, or half the people I see on television casually mentioning the possibility of nuclear war or sending Americans to fight in the Middle East, or in any way involving us in a war that has nothing to do with prosperity and peace at home, nothing, in other words, to do with us, Americans, then I have a right to call you out and be really offended because it's my family. They live here. It's not a joke to me. There's nothing abstract about it. And that is the difference between what's happening in the Middle East from what's happening in Ukraine, about which I had very strong feelings, but I didn't think there was a realistic possibility that my kids could be enmeshed in it. Now there is. So I think, get some self-respect. I would say to my fellow Americans, get a clearer picture of what's important. Your children are important. Okay, that's number one, your children. And if they're threatening your children, I don't care what their justification is, they're your enemy. That's how I feel about it, okay? Number one. Number two, in the United States, the right defends free speech. For most of my life, the left defended free speech in the United States. Till about 2014-15, Donald Trump, a lot of things happened. The parties inverted, the wings inverted. The left became avowed enemies of free speech, and it was really up to the right to defend our First Amendment, the right to say what you think is true, not be a slave. Because, by the way, if you can't say what you think is true, you're not a citizen, you're not a human being, you're a slave. So the right has been the group defending that sacred, God-given right. With the rise of this war in the Middle East, you're watching people on the right say, well, actually, there's a difference between hate speech and free speech. Well, no, there's not, actually. You may hate certain sorts of speech. Certain kinds of speech may be immoral. According to me, I think certain kinds of speech are immoral. But if you're suggesting they should be illegal, you can use the power of the state to make me be quiet and enslave me, then you are again my enemy. And you're seeing a lot of people on the right say that in the United States. And I'm absolutely shocked by it. I can't even believe what I'm watching. And I can't overstate my rage or my contempt for them. Because these are the people, and by the way, if they're not defending free speech in my country, no one is. And we're done. And we're going to have hate speech laws, which again are just laws of criminalizing speech that the people in charge hate, that they're threatened by. That's it. That's all they are. They're not on behalf of some oppressed group. Many of those groups are not actually oppressed, but leave that aside. Maybe they are oppressed, but it's not on their behalf that these laws will be passed. It's on behalf of the people in charge. And that's completely wrong. And you don't live in a free society. You don't live in a society of citizens and human beings. You live in a slave state when you have that. And the people on the right who are calling for it should be deeply ashamed of themselves.
So Ben Shapiro is somebody that was named by Tucker Carlson there, saying that he is trying to drag America into war. Now, Ben Shapiro has decided that since there is no NDA, right, with him and Tucker, I assume there's a large severance package, a payout to Candace Owens, and an NDA. And Candace Owens has said the same thing. Since there is that, not with Tucker, Ben Shapiro has been able to sort of go build his own argument against Tucker on these points.
Aside maybe between you and Tucker, let's say, like, how do we put that together so that it's like, we're all going to vote for Trump. We're all going to try to, restore America to something.
When it comes to Candace,
yeah.
I've not said word one
yeah.
about Candace since like last November.
Yeah.
So that is what it is.
Sure.
I have not publicly.
So I mean
said,
it more
about
clearly
Candace.
between, say, whatever the divide now is between you and Tucker, when Tucker said,
I offered Tucker multiple times to come on the show and hash this out.
Yeah.
It was Tucker who accused me of dual loyalty.
Yeah.
It was Tucker who suggested I hate the country.
Yeah.
That was not me saying that about Tucker. I've said precisely the reverse about Tucker, which is that I believe that Tucker loves the country. So it is not up to me to heal a breach that was created by Tucker there. I've criticized Tucker's policy positions. I've never criticized his motives.
Yeah.
I've never suggested that Russia was in the pay of the Russians, that Tucker was in the pay of the Russians. I've never suggested that Tucker is an America hater, that he despises the country in some sort of deep, dark, conspiratorial way or anything like that.
You actually just said the reverse.
I just said the reverse, and I've said the reverse multiple times since he said the reverse about me, since he said that I hate the country back in December. Again, I've reached out to him. Our team has reached out to him many times.
Okay, so if I text him and offer to moderate a debate, you're down to do it.
Yes, I mean, frankly, I don't
even have to be there, but I'm willing to do it if it helps.
Of course, I've literally personally texted him about this. Yes.
Yeah.
So would you like to see that? I mean, I'd love to see that. Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson got together and talked. I think it was like a long time ago. It was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago. And they disagreed on a lot of things, and it was fireworks, man. But now Ben Shapiro is going viral with a new clip from his show. And this clip is from today, where Ben Shapiro trashes Tucker Carlson, specifically calling out corrupt commentators in their 50s who are in the business of just asking questions, which we'll get to in just a moment. But that's sort of the tagline for Tucker Carlson. Just asking questions is Tucker's signature MO for pushing conspiratorial theories without evidence. Now, this clip is dividing people. Some people are saying they love it. Great summary from Ben Shapiro on the just asking questions approach in office, dishonest and misleading. Some people are saying Ben Shapiro sounds more and more like a blue-haired feminist that he debates every single day. Saying just asking questions is code for conspiracy theories and is very lame dig at Tucker Carlson. So who's right here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's watch the clip, okay? And then we'll build in the context.
Blame society. You don't have an answer. So it must be a conspiracy. There must be some sort, and you're just asking questions. You don't know, right? This is the game that is played by so many corrupt commentators, just asking questions. I don't have to show you evidence that something terrible is happening. I don't have to actually demonstrate how the thing is happening. I don't have to tell you who the problem is. Wink, wink. But I can just tell you right now that there is a problem. But even, and if I'm asked about it, hey, I'm just asking questions. Now, let me tell you something about just asking questions for a second. Just asking questions is a game for children. My son is 7. He can just ask questions. My daughter is 10. She can just ask questions. If you are 50 and you are just asking questions, I don't think you're just asking questions. I think that your level of curiosity is actually quite low. I think that you don't care enough to know or know enough to care. I think that the vast majority of people who are in the just asking questions business have an answer that they want to suggest, but they know there's no evidence for it. So instead, they hide behind just asking questions. In other words, they're completely full of shit.
So Ben Shapiro chose violence. Just like that, there's no other way to say it, right? Like this is Ben Shapiro choosing violence. And what is this just asking questions thing about? Like Ben Shapiro repeated that time and time again as sort of like a cover for calling Tucker Carlson a conspiracy theorist or saying that Tucker Carlson has no evidence. Well, this is like a prime example. This is one that came to mind, right? So he's talking about commentators who are 50 years old, who are corrupt. This is what he's calling Tucker. He's clearly calling out Tucker here. This is the kind of stuff he's talking about with Tucker. This is a good example. When Tucker Carlson was on Fox, Tucker Carlson was being criticized for his reporting on Paul Pelosi. and the Paul Pelosi narrative. Remember, Paul Pelosi was found in his underwear with a hammer with some crazy guy in his house, and they were fighting over the hammer, and Paul Pelosi didn't declare an emergency or anything when the cops came, and he got hit with the hammer. It was bad. We don't advocate violence, but there were a lot of questions as to why the hell was this all happening, and where was the security? And Nancy Pelosi has Secret Service, so how did some crazy guy like break into her house? There are a lot of questions, right? This is Tucker Carlson's kind of like paramount skepticism cannot be wrong monologue. That's been his MO for his entire career.
Around the attack on Paul Pelosi in San Francisco last Friday night, we couldn't, and we still can't. It's not gotten any clearer in the past 24 hours. Police in San Francisco, for reasons that are not clear and not defensible, are still refusing to release the body camera footage, which would answer most questions. And now there are more questions about why the Pelosi home was supposedly unguarded that night. According to CBS News, after January 6th, Nancy Pelosi moved hundreds of Capitol Hill police officers to field offices in Tampa and San Francisco. Did you know that? She's got her own police force now. The point was to protect members of Congress, presumably from Donald Trump's QAnon army. So there was a field office of the Capitol Hill police in San Francisco, according to this news account, and yet somehow there was no security at the Speaker of the House's home on Friday night? That doesn't make sense at all. You know what doesn't make sense either? Is the supposed blog of the man accused, David DePappy. Take a look at it. It reads like a left-wing activist idea of what a QAnon extremist would post. So this guy was homeless, mentally ill, and addicted to drugs. Who paid to register the site? The first time the site appeared on archiving services was the day of the attack.
Super weird, man.
What does that mean? Like, how could you explain that? Maybe there's a good explanation. I'm not alleging anything. Just asking questions, as they say, but those are fair questions to ask. But no one in the media is going to ask those questions. Why?
So we totally agree with the idea that skepticism can never be wrong, and that it's important to be a skeptic, and that you should be able to just ask questions, right? Like, isn't that the fundamental tenet of free speech? And that everyone should be able to answer, obviously. If somebody can shut down your question or shut down your answer, then you are a slave. And we don't want people to be slaves. We want people to be able to speak freely. Now, of course, the subtext of all this is Candace Owens is firing, right? The atom that was split that started the whole nuclear war here. And for the life of me, I don't know why people are trying to like push more on this drama and drop more uranium-235 into the burn pit. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. You will be reminded that Tucker Carlson's show on X was where Candace Owens went to respond to Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro publicly criticized her, something that Tucker Carlson and her covered. And Tucker Carlson, being pretty upfront about the criticism, came because of your stance on Israel.
In 1616, the Roman Inquisition hauled in Galileo, the Italian astronomer, and commanded him to stop saying that the earth revolves around the sun. Shut up, they said. Everyone knows that's wrong, and you're a bad person for saying otherwise. That's a well-known story, of course, and we laugh about it now 400 years later because the authorities were completely wrong. Galileo is a hero. They are fools. And we explain this by pointing out that they were religious nuts. They were superstitious. Nothing like that could ever happen now. But it turns out the one constant in human history is human nature. And not only does it happen now, it happens more than ever. Watch Candace Owens get widely attacked, not by one person, but by everyone for being right.
People like Candace Owens and others have been flagrant at putting out disinformation into the public sphere.
The top performing post of the week was this post by Candace Owens, a far right-wing commentator and a favorite on Fox, denigrating George Floyd. It just shows how this website is a radicalization engine.
You do have this sort of parade of MAGA world that are parroting Russian talking points.
Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Tulsi Gabbard, I think somewhere along the line, they don't believe this, but they think that it's in their interest to say these things. These people are almost collaborators.
That Candace Owens video was the top video on Facebook this past week, and she's saying all sorts of things about George Floyd and denying any systemic racism problems. And so there's a deeper fundamental issue with what the Facebook algorithm and all social media algorithms, what kind of content they reward.
Others doubled down
on vaccine disinformation. Folks like right-wing commentator Candace Owens, who told followers that she wouldn't take the vaccine even on her deathbed.
Notice why they were attacking Candace Owens. What did she say? She said, well, actually, George Floyd was not murdered by a racist cop, much less by a systemically racist society. She went on to say, no, Ukraine is not going to win the war against Russia. And for saying these things, every one of which has proven true, she was attacked as an immoral person, a racist, and a traitor to her country. What's interesting, however, is that no one leveling those attacks has ever apologized to her. And so maybe like Galileo, she's going to have to wait for her descendants to get the praise for her truth-telling. And we thought that seems unfair.
So that was Tucker Carlson's lead-in to questions of Candace Owens. We encourage you to go back and rewatch this, actually. It's quite instructive as to where the breakdown lines were and where they are today. But I will tell you, this is sort of spiraling, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I have a feeling I know which side Tucker Carlson's going to be on here. Will this mean that Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens team up, create a company? We're not exactly sure. Candace Owens did say she was finally free when the Daily Wire fired her. And there have been some very, very interesting commentary on, obviously, the Daily Wire coming from a number of different sources, right? Patrick Bet-David in the PBD podcast, Andrew Schultz, he has a huge audience, all of them attacking, quite frankly, Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire along the same lines as Tucker Carlson. So will this be fruitful? What will it end up? What will we end up with? I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. But this seems to be sort of where the battle lines are being drawn. A final word I'll say on this is our enemies love that conservative media, which is already pretty fractured, is fighting and at each other's throats again and again and again. And there's always something that sort of like creates a new bit of drama. And it's really easy to defeat a divided enemy. And so I truly do hope that we can unite and win. There are plenty of times for battles like this. I think that it's important to like talk through this is why I talk about them. I think it's important to like talk through these battles, where they come from and how they're moving forward, and what we can do to maybe perhaps prevent this in the future, or maybe not. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you subscribe. It's your boy Benny. America first. See ya.